Good afternoon and happy new year to everybody. I'm Andy Shain. I'm managing editor for Post and Courier Columbia. And today I'm here with Post and Courier reporter Jessica Holdman to talk about the University of South Carolina's presidential search. After spending 6 months looking for a new leader, USC got really close to getting a new president last month. But the school's preferred candidate withdrew soon after his name became public. And it's put the university, the state's largest school, at a bit of a crossroads in finding a new leader. So it's a critical time. There's a lot of questions going on. We're in a new year. So we thought it would be a good time to, first of all, kind of recap how we got here. So Jessica and I will go through that, as well as address some of the next steps and what might be happening as the school moves forward to try to find a new leader. Couple of housekeeping things over to the chat. You're going to find the Twitter handles and email addresses for Jessica and myself, so you can reach out to us at any point. And also, anytime during this this virtual event, you can submit questions to us. You'll see the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. And please send us questions. We're going to leave plenty of time to answer questions, as well as some of the questions that we got from people who, as they registered for this event today. And again, thank you for joining us at this. So let's go ahead and start off with sort of how we got here. Jessica has been covering this with me since Bob Caslin resigned in May amid that plagiarism scandal from commencement. So Jessica, take us through the steps of what happened after Caslin resigned, and they brought back Harris Pastides as the interim president. But how did the search kind of get started?
Sure. So I think to put it in context too, we also kind of have to go back to Bob Caslin's time as president and the search process that brought him in to the university leadership, in that the board faced a lot of criticism in how they approached it. They were even sanctioned by their accreditors for having political influence involved in the process. Governor Henry McMaster had lobbied for Caslin's placement as president. And so going into this, the board knew it needed to really switch some things around. And so they started out by gathering community input. They launched a survey, had students, staff, faculty, just general members of the community weigh in on characteristics they thought the next president should have. A couple of the things that stood out there, people said they wanted someone who had an academic background. There were also a couple comments in there about how folks wanted someone who would address instances of sexual violence that had taken place on campus and make that a priority. And they also wanted to see someone or see a pool of candidates who were diverse and who would make it a priority to take a look at some of the buildings on campus that were named after folks who have a racially insensitive past, particularly the Strom Thurmond Center. The Student Wellness Center on campus was a big point of contention at that point. From there, the search committee, which was made up of 21 members, put together a leadership profile, which they shared a few months before really launching the presidential search, or as they were looking for candidates. And again, we see in there, they wanted someone with an academic background, someone with a doctoral degree or a higher degree. They wanted someone with research background and who could bring research dollars into the university. And they also are getting ready to launch a major fundraising campaign. And so they wanted someone with a fundraising background. So that's kind of really what you see going into the search process. From there, they formed this 21-member search committee. And on there were faculty members, there were members of the board, alumni, students, and one in particular who stands out is one of their major donors, Lou Kennedy. She's the CEO of Nephron Pharmaceuticals in West Columbia. And as they were nearing the probably close to the end of their search process, or as they had identified about 50 candidates in their pool that they were searching through. There was an incident at one of the meetings where Lou Kennedy said the board chairman, Dorn Smith, wagged his finger at her and told her she was only there out of courtesy. Lou didn't take that well. She ended up leaving the search committee, and she cited concerns that this time the search was going to go a lot like it did previously with Bob Caslin, in that she felt like there was already a choice made and that the community input wasn't being taken into account. And so she said she didn't want her name attached to that, left the committee. And not long after that, the search committee chairman came before the faculty senate, which is the leadership group for faculty members on campus, and told them that they had identified a preferred candidate. And that they wanted to bring this person to campus for faculty to give their input and have a chance to meet this person.
Well, and so at that point, the university leadership was really hopeful. They had a candidate. Through a little bit of sleuthing, we were able to figure out that candidate was Meng Chang, who is the Purdue University's engineering dean, Stanford educated, taught at Princeton, spent a year in the State Department under Mike Pompeo, being a technology advisor. Obviously, and the reaction initially was really positive. Here was someone, again, who fit that leadership profile that the university had brought out. Someone with an academic background, someone with a history of academics, and obviously high-end academics in this case, having gone to Stanford and having taught at Princeton, and again at one of the major engineering schools in this country. Then there was a problem. A day later, Chang announced that he was withdrawing. He cited family reasons. It was early expected that actually later on that week, he was going to be elected to be the next president. That really put USC back at square one. They had sent over 5 names. The search committee had sent over 5 names. We knew that one of them was preferred, and that was Chang. And we didn't know the other 4. But slowly but surely, word was coming out that the other 4, who clearly were not preferred, had said no, thank you. And even though they said they had interviewed 11 semifinalists in Atlanta earlier in November, it kind of sort of said, where are we going? There was sort of a statement that said that the search was that the board was going to try to figure out what to do next, but nothing was said with any concrete nature of what's going to happen next. And so at this point, it's kind of tough. That said, and I know I'm kind of talking a little bit here that the boards right now, the search is in the hands of the board. Chairman Dorn Smith, the Vice Chairman Thad Westbrook, are now leading it, and they've been asked to sort of do the next steps. Thad Westbrook was actually the head of the search committee. But I think it's kind of at this point they're left with some major choices. Do they start the search, which is admitting that hey, we didn't really find somebody and didn't really find even a second choice, third choice, fourth choice out of that. But also there is time before the end of the academic year to do that. The other possibility is asking Harris Pastides to stay another academic year. My understanding is that that's not something that he would want to do at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see what the next steps that the trustees take in finding a president at this point. Sometimes you get a doorbell and you get a dog in the middle of these things. And that's what's part of the fun of working at home is all about. And so you're gonna have to put up with my barking dog for a minute. That said, it looks like that the board's going to have a meeting tomorrow. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting; it's a special meeting. And again, I apologize about the dog, and all of that. And Jessica, why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on at the State House, which is the next steps that's going to take place?
Sure. So one thing that we have sort of overarching this whole process as well is that there have been pledges by several lawmakers that they will remake the board. And there are at least 3 bills that have been introduced currently. And those would take the board and cut its size, taking it from the largest governing board of a state agency in South Carolina and making it one of the smallest. And they have the backing of Lou Kennedy. She has said she will launch a petition and gather support because she also feels that it is time to change up leadership at the university. And so we'll see this legislative session, sort of how that takes shape.
All right. Well, very good. So obviously things are a little calmer now at the House, as I said, with all of this. So and again, it's going to be interesting to see. So let's dive into our reader questions. And as I said, at the bottom of the Zoom, you can give us some questions now, and we can answer some of them live. But we're going to answer some of the questions that were submitted by readers ahead of time. And Elizabeth Jenkins and Deborah, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name, Deborah, Deborah Gian, wanted to really know about how the search rules have changed, the presidential search changed from 2019 to 2021. So Jessica, talk a little bit about how the university's changed up the way it's searching for a president.
Sure. The biggest change really comes in the boards. They are required to self-report if they are approached by anyone who is trying to influence the presidential search. So members of the search committee are asked to let folks know, or to let the chairman know, if anyone were to approach them and try to influence their decision in any way. And that was particularly important given, as I mentioned earlier, they were sanctioned by accreditors for that political influence that took place back in 2019. So that is probably one of the larger changes. They also shook up sort of the makeup of the search committee. They brought on more faculty members to have more faculty involvement. I think I counted at least 4 faculty members who had seats on that 21-person search committee, which was more representation than they had in the past.
All right. So now Susan Bridwell asks that it sounds like USC might be getting an unfortunate reputation, and she wants to know, how can the bad reputation be corrected? Again, I'm not someone in academics. Some folks who I've talked to have said, of course, none of this, what happened with General Caslin in bringing him in, and the controversy that surrounded that in 2019, of course, also his the way he left the university, as well as, of course, the idea that you'd have this preferred candidate and they withdrew, is not a great look for the university. But at the same time, I think all things can be solved with, I think it's fair that people out there have said all things can be solved with the right choice. And again, if they're able to get someone of the right caliber, or somebody who excites the university community, who gets the political community, which is important to the university, excited, and in general, just the folks around the state excited about the prospect of someone who can move the university forward, could change a lot of that. And it's going to be really important to get that president in, because right now, and as we've been reporting over the months, there's a number of openings, key openings at the university that were just things that were part of the transition as Bob Caslin was coming in, that are open. I mean, basically you have the provost, the number 2 job at the university that's open right now, the vice presidents for research, the vice president who's in charge of fundraising, those jobs are open. Even the person who's over health services and all those things during this COVID, that job is open as well as a number of dean positions. And none of that's going to get filled until you get someone in the president's office and they get the right people that they want in place. So again, that's the way to correct. I mean, that's going to be the way to kind of fix things, is to get that president in who can appoint those folks down the line and get those things going. Um, Willard Strong asked about what the university can do about mending its relationships with Lou Kennedy, who is again a major donor who said she was going to stop giving to the university after what happened, but also for those of you who've been following the university, Darla Moore as well, who was the school's top benefactor, who said she was going to stop giving to the university after the school failed to acknowledge the death of her mother this spring. So you have two major donors saying that they're severing at least their financial ties with the university at this point. What do you think, Jessica, needs to be done or can be done, especially in the case with Lou?
Sure, and I think one thing that is particularly important, Andy, you mentioned that the head of the fundraising department has departed, and from reporting by the folks over at the state newspaper, we had found out too that there was this feeling that there wasn't really great strategy for donor relations at the university. And so again, having someone who comes in and can fill that role and be a face for the university, and also bring someone in who can lead the charge for fundraising, is going to be particularly important, and someone who has a strategy for donor relations so that things don't slip through the cracks the way they were previously. It's been a major goal of the board to attract research dollars, and Nephron Pharmaceuticals has pumped a lot of money into the pharmacy school there at USC. They've brought in a sterile lab that students can work and help produce various drugs and pharmaceutical operations. And so, these things are extremely important to how the university operates and research going forward.
And Jessica, and as you mentioned earlier, this is a crucial time for the university. They were hoping to start a new fundraising campaign actually in this year, in what would have been Bob Caslin's third year at the university. And again, fundraising is important at this point, especially considering the projects that the university is trying to push forward. It's remaking the whole South Campus and redoing the dorms down on the South Campus. More importantly, it's got a $300 million medical school complex, health sciences complex that the university wants to build at the Bull Street site in Columbia. So again, that fundraising and all of that is going to be important. And if people see maybe that how these relationships with Darla Moore, Lou Kennedy, and others is struggling, it's going to be something that the university is going to have to contend with as when it does get a new president and does start that major fundraising campaign, because of a lot of the projects that they want to move forward on at this point. So let's talk a little bit. Jessica, you talked to Michael Bryant has a question that you touched on a little bit earlier, but maybe you can go into a little bit more detail. Michael asked, what is the profile of an ideal candidate for president? Again, and especially coming off of what happened with Bob Caslin, who was not a traditional academic when he was brought in. He was a 3-star Army general who had led West Point for 5 years. What is it you think that the university community, others said that they wanted really in the next president?
Right. Again, I think having that academic background, that was one thing that came up in that survey over and over again. I think we also have to remember that this person also has to have a relationship with lawmakers in the state. This is the largest university. They have the biggest budget, and those are the folks that control the purse strings. So they do also need to be able to maintain that relationship as well. Things that folks, again, also said was important. We talked about the need for diversity and recognizing diversity on campus, particularly the renaming of the buildings. There are several on campus that have been identified as part of a large and long process. There was a special committee that was brought together under Bob Caslin's leadership to identify measures that the school could take to address these. And so again, the student community said this was something that was important to them. And they also talked about wanting someone who recognizes that there are maybe some issues the university faced in its handling of sexual misconduct among faculty. And there were, I believe, 3 faculty members that were accused of acts of sexual harassment, and many involved felt that the university wasn't handling it the way they should. The university brought in some consultants and are working their way through that process currently. They have plans to make some new hires in their Title IX office, which is the office that handles many of these situations, many of these complaints. And so those were also things that came up in that survey, which went out, like I said, community-wide. And you saw that reflected in the leadership profile, in the sense that they said they wanted someone with an academic background, a high degree, someone who had experience leading a major university or being in a leadership role, who was familiar with the culture that exists on college campuses. And again, fundraising was another thing that came up.
Sure. And just a reminder that if you do have a question, you can go ahead and ask it in the Q&A box down below on your Zoom, what do we call it? Screen, I guess. So got a question here from Jasper Ramsey, and he said, is there any scenario where you see Michael Amaritis, who was the provost under Harris Pastides, is the choice to become president? For those of you who don't know, Michael Amaritis, as I said, was the provost under Pastides. He is now the chancellor at the University of Illinois, Chicago. And there's been a lot of talk about why not bring Amaritis back. He was someone who was considered a popular figure on campus, and also as well as in the community. My understanding is that that Michael Amaritis is not a candidate for the job, that he is not really been interested in the job, is my understanding at this point. I've not heard his name when I've been talking to my sources about it, as someone who has been in the mix or was in the mix. So for those of you who are hoping that Michael Amaritis will be coming, it doesn't look like he is. It looks like he's going to stay and enjoy the Cubs and the Bears and deep dish pizza for a little while longer. So Jessica, we do have a question that was brought to us live, and I'll throw this one at you. And this kind of gets at a little bit, again, something else you spoke about with what's happening at the State House. But is Andrew Bogert asks, is the USC Board of Trustees part of the problem, and if so, why? Talk a little bit about what the perceptions are out there about the role of the board in this, and again, are they going to? Is this something they can fix, or something that people feel like they need to get out of the way?
Sure. I think the perceptions of the board, they are politically appointed. They are appointed by the legislature, and so for folks who are looking at that. Under the bills that are currently introduced, they will still be politically appointed. It will just drop down the size of the board. Again, maybe trying to back down some of the politics a little bit there. Other impressions of the board, I think there have been conversations about wanting to see more diversity on the board. You've got a lot of folks who are older, who have been in those positions for quite some time. And Andy, you probably know their tenures better than I do, but some of them, I believe, have been on there at least 20 years.
Yeah, actually, you're almost talking about a good chunk of them have been there. Some of them have been there for 30 or more years.
And so I think folks kind of see it as some of the same old, and they want to see some new blood and have a board that reflects the community at the university as well.
All right. Scott King brings up an issue that a lot of people brought up in some of our questions, and Scott asks, why can't the university just dig deep in their coffers like the athletic department does for coaches and pay President Pastides whatever it takes to keep him here. And again, to those, to remind those a little bit about President Pastides' history here. He'd spent 10 years at USC as the Dean of the Public School of Health. And he had also been the research vice president before he became president in 2008, right about the time when the recession hit. He stayed on for 11 years during a time when the university decided to grow with the enrollment, a big explosion in enrollment, and tried also, and because it was basically because interest rates were so low, did a lot of building, did a lot of maintenance work, more than $1 billion worth of work during his tenure, including the completion of the Darla Moore School building itself, the law school building on the north side of campus now. Some of the bigger projects that the university has had, as well as some major athletic work, including Gamecock Park, where, obviously you can watch the Gamecocks walk, and a lot of people enjoy tailgating on Saturdays. So there's been a lot of work done there. He retired, got a house in Folly Beach, and was enjoying retirement until he was called back in to help be interim president. Again, was seen as a big stabilizing factor after 2 years of Bob Caslin. But that said, again, what I understand, he's not said anything publicly, but my understanding is that he said, I'm giving you a year academically. I want to go back. I need to go back and want to be retired. And he has grandkids. And so the sense I'm getting is that no matter what, throw money at him, that kind of thing, that at this point, he's committed to seeing out the year, but after that, it's time for somebody else to step in. So that, I think, again, that makes this imperative at this point for the board to try to find that successor out there. So again, just to review real quick, the board meets tomorrow. Don't know if we're going to get an update or not. I know that there's a board retreat later on in January. Again, don't know if we're going to get any update. We haven't had anything beyond we're working on it at this point. To review, what we're hearing is that, again, we're not really sure that there's any other finalists that are in the mix at the moment. Who knows if that may change. We don't have any word yet if they're restarting the search, and again, or if there's what else is in the mix. So we're looking forward to maybe hearing the next things. If you know something, please share. Obviously, we want to know, because I think we're talking about a large institution in this state, nearly a budget approaching $2 billion a year, more than 52,000 students on 8 campuses, thousands and thousands of employees. It's a major economic driver, has a lot of attention. For goodness sake, I mean, you don't need to dump mayonnaise on the football coach just to make some news. We didn't get to that today about the mayo dump, and how that obviously probably brought a lot of publicity to the school for that. And I'm not sure I'd want 4 pounds of mayo dumped on me just for the benefit of the company. So I want to thank Jessica for being here. I want to thank Tilly Shain for her guest appearance during that. So thanks for tolerating obviously a little bit of a distraction. Again, we're all working from home during these times, and as I said, sometimes the foibles come to that. And I've just got a couple quick things. First of all, this chat, a link to this web event will be emailed to you if you registered for this event. It will also go on our YouTube page, the Post and Courier's YouTube page, in probably a day or so. So if you want to catch up with it or you missed it, you can do that. Just a couple of quick reminders. We have a number of newsletters for you to subscribe to, including news from Columbia, where obviously we're paying attention to things at USC, but also paying attention to things in City Hall and in the schools and with business. Jessica's one of our business and development reporters. Have a lot of things going on there, so please take a look for our newsletters. And also, we always encourage you to subscribe. The way you support the work we do is through paying for it, honestly. And for those of you who are subscribers, thank you very much. And for those of you who are thinking about subscribing, please do, and thank you in advance for doing that. And you can sign up for our newsletters and subscribe at our website at postandcourier.com/Columbia. So for Jessica Holdman and I, just want to say thank you for your day. Again, have a great, healthy new year and be good.